The black ships came from nowhere. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the stars through the huge front window. His ship was bigger than anything the aliens had ever built. It was dark as night and made no sound as it moved through space. Behind him, 11 other ships just like his followed in perfect formation. Jake was tall and strong, with gray eyes that had seen too much pain. His uniform was simple and black, with no fancy decorations. He did not smile as he looked at the distant planet ahead of them. That planet used to belong to humans. Now aliens lived there instead. "Captain," said Lisa Hayes, his second in command. She was a smart woman with short brown hair and a serious face. "We are now in the Centauri system. All ships report ready." Jake nodded slowly. 3,000 years ago, his people had been forced to leave this place. The aliens had killed almost everyone. Only a few thousand humans had escaped into the dark space between galaxies. Now they were back, and they were not the same weak race that had fled so long ago. "Send a message to the fleet," Jake said. His voice was calm but cold. "Begin the mission." Far below on the planet's surface, Kethvar was digging through old human ruins. He was a Zephyrian, tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. His people had taken this world after the humans were gone. They called it Zephyr Prime now, but Kethvar remembered its old name was New Terra. Kethvar was different from most aliens. He liked to study the past and learn about the humans who used to live here. Most of his people said humans were weak and stupid. They said humans had started a war and lost because they were not strong enough to win. But the things Kethvar found in the ruins told a different story. He brushed dirt away from a stone wall covered in human writing. The words were hard to read, but he had learned the human language over many years of study. What he read made his crystal skin turn pale. They came at night, the writing said. No warning, no chance to fight back. They killed the children first, then the women, then the men. They burned our cities and took our world. This is not war. This is murder. Kethvar's hands shook as he read more. There were names carved in the stone, thousands of names. Men, women, children, all dead, all killed by his people and their allies. Above the planet, 3 alien patrol ships moved through space on their normal route. They were Confederation vessels, painted in bright colors to show their power. Inside, the alien crews felt safe and strong. They had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Nothing could threaten them. Then something impossible happened. Patrol ships' engines stopped working. Their weapons went dead. Their communication systems turned off. The alien crews pushed buttons and shouted orders, but nothing worked. Their ships just floated in space like dead rocks. Captain Vextor of the lead patrol ship was a Valaxian warrior. His people were proud fighters who had never backed down from any battle. He had thick gray skin and 4 arms, each strong enough to crush metal. But now he felt afraid for the first time in his life. "What is happening?" he roared at his crew. "Fix the engines." His crew tried everything they could think of, but the ships would not respond. Then something appeared on their screens that made them all freeze in terror. 12 black ships had surrounded them. The ships were huge and moved without making any sound. They had no lights and no markings. They looked like pieces of the night sky that had come alive. A voice came through the dead communication system. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, the language all aliens used to talk to each other. But there was something about the voice that made Vextor's blood run cold. It sounded human. "Confederation vessels," the voice said. It was calm and quiet, but full of terrible power. "You are now prisoners of the Human Space Command. Do not attempt to fight back. Your weapons will not work against us." Vex-Tor could not believe what he was hearing. "Humans are extinct," he shouted back. We destroyed them all 3,000 years ago. There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it was even more frightening because it was so quiet. We are not extinct, Phylaxian. We are returned, and we remember everything. One of the black ships moved closer to Vextor's vessel. A beam of strange light came from the human ship and touched the alien vessel. Suddenly, Vextor could see through the walls of his own ship. He could see his crew, his weapons, his engines. Everything was visible, as if his ship was made of glass. Your ship is now under our control, the human voice continued. You will remain here until our fleet arrives. Then you will face judgment for the crimes your people committed against humanity. Vextor tried to move his ship, but it would not obey him. He tried to fire his weapons, but they stayed silent. His proud warship had become a prison. On the planet below, Cathvar felt the ground shake under his feet. He looked up at the sky and saw lights moving between the stars. Something big was happening up there, something that would change everything. He looked back at the human writing on the stone wall. At the bottom, carved deeper than all the rest, were words that made him understand the truth at last. We are not dead. We are waiting. And someday, we will return to collect what is owed to. Shoo, the lights in the sky grew brighter. The humans had kept their promise. They had returned, and they were not here to forgive. The great meeting hall on Nexus Prime had never seen such fear. Chancellor Vorth-Zek stood at the center of the huge room, his crystal body shaking with worry. Around him sat the leaders of the three most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They had ruled together for 3,000 years, but now they looked like scared children. This is impossible, said General Korath Prime, the biggest and strongest of the Valaxian warriors. His 4 arms were crossed, but his voice was not as confident as usual. Humans cannot have survived. We made sure of that. Then explain the ships, said Queen Esfi of the Korthic. Her insect-like head moved from side to side as she spoke. Explain how they disabled our patrol vessels without firing a shot. Explain how they know our language and our history. Vorth-Zek looked at the reports on his desk. 3 patrol ships captured. No shots fired. No casualties. But the aliens inside those ships were now prisoners of creatures that were supposed to be dead. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should look at the old records again. The real records. Not the ones we tell our children. The other leaders became very quiet. They all knew what the real records said. They had hidden the truth for 3,000 years, but now the truth was coming back to find them not far away. In the cold space between stars, Admiral Ben Parker was getting ready for war. His ship, the Vengeance, was even bigger than Jake Morrison's vessel. Around him, 50 human warships waited for his orders. Ben was older than Jake, with white hair and scars on his face from battles long ago. His family had been killed in the first alien attacks 3,000 years ago. He had been just a boy then, but he remembered everything. Target the mining colonies first, he told his officers. The Korthic have been stealing resources from our old worlds for 3,000 years. Time to pay them back. His second-in-command, Commander Amy Foster, looked at the star maps. She was young and smart, with red hair and green eyes that missed nothing. Sir, there are civilians at those colonies. Korthic workers and their families. Ben's face was hard as stone. We will not harm innocent people, Commander. That is what makes us different from them. But the military bases will be destroyed. Every weapon, every ship, every soldier who took part in the murder of our people. Amy nodded. She understood. The humans had not returned for conquest. They had returned for justice. The first attack came without warning. Commander, Zekhive was in charge of the Korthak mining station in the Outer Rim. It was a huge metal structure that pulled valuable minerals from dead planets. Thousands of Korthik. Workers lived there with their families. ZEK Hive was looking at production reports when all the lights went out. Then they came back on, but everything was different. The computers showed messages in human writing. The communication systems were playing human music from 3,000 years ago. "What is happening?" Zekhive asked his workers. But before anyone could answer, a voice came through the speakers. It was calm and clear, speaking perfect Korthik language. "This is Admiral Ben Parker of the Human Space Command. All military personnel will surrender immediately. All civilians will remain in their quarters for their own safety. This facility is now under human control." Zekhive ran to the window and looked out into space. He could not see anything at first. Then the stars began to move. No, not the stars. Ships. Dozens of huge black ships that had been invisible until now. One of the ships was so big it blocked out half the sky. Zekhive had never seen anything like it. It was smooth and dark, with no lights or windows. It looked like a piece of the night that had come alive. "Impossible," Zekhive whispered. "We destroyed their entire fleet 3,000 years ago." But even as he said it, he knew he was wrong. The humans had not been destroyed. They had been hiding. And now they were back with ships and weapons that made the alien fleet look like toys. The mining station's defense systems tried to fire at the human ships. The big laser cannons that could destroy a small moon turned toward the black vessels and prepared to shoot. Nothing happened. The weapons would not fire. The targeting systems showed error messages in human writing. Even the station's shields would not turn on. Then something even more impossible happened. The human ships began to change. They grew bigger and smaller. They became transparent, and then solid again. They moved through space in ways that broke every law of physics the aliens knew. One of the ships flew straight through the mining station's outer wall without breaking it. It just passed through the metal like it was made of air. Then it appeared inside the station's main hangar and became solid again. Soldiers in black armor came out of the ship. They were tall and strong, moving with perfect coordination. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, but Zekhive could tell they were human. The alien guards tried to fight back, but their weapons would not work. Their laser rifles were dead. Their plasma cannons stayed silent. Even their simple metal knives became too heavy to lift. The human soldiers did not hurt anyone. They just walked through the station, and everywhere they went, the alien weapons stopped working. It was like they had power over the very laws of nature. In less than an hour, the entire mining station was under human control. Not a single shot had been fired. Not a single person had been hurt. But everyone knew that the galaxy had changed forever. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the science lab of the human flagship. She was a small woman with dark hair and intelligent eyes. Around her, computer screens showed information that would have driven alien scientists mad with confusion. "They want to know how we do it," she said to her assistant, Dr. Marcus Lee. "They want to know how our ships can move through solid matter and how our weapons can shut down their technology." Marcus was younger than Elena, with brown hair and a kind face, but his eyes were hard when he talked about the aliens. His grandparents had died in the human colonies 3,000 years ago. "Let them wonder," he said. "Our ancestors spent 3,000 years in the dark space between galaxies. While the aliens were celebrating their victory, we were learning. We were growing. We were becoming something new." Elena nodded and looked at the genetic scans on her computer. The humans who had returned were not the same species that had left. 3,000 years of evolution in the harsh environment of deep space had changed them. They were stronger, smarter, and more advanced than any race in the galaxy. But more than that, they had learned to work together in ways the aliens never could. Every human ship was connected to every other human ship. Every human mind could touch every other human mind. They had become something greater than the sum of their parts. The aliens think this is about revenge, Elena said. They are wrong. This is about justice. And justice cannot be stopped by weapons or walls or lies. Back on Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vorthzek was reading the real history files, the ones that told the truth about what had happened 3,000 years ago. His crystal hands shook as he read about the murder of entire human worlds, about children killed in their beds, about families torn apart and planets burned to ash. We told ourselves it was war, he whispered to his empty office. We told ourselves they were dangerous, but the truth is, we were afraid of them. Afraid of what they might become. He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the humans were coming for him. Coming for all of them. And there was nowhere to run. The humans had returned. And this time, they were the ones with all the power. 3,000 years ago, Earth was burning. Commander Ryan Mitchell ran through the smoke-filled streets of New York City, carrying his 5-year-old daughter in his arms. Above them, alien ships rained fire from the sky. The great buildings that had stood for centuries were falling like broken toys. "Daddy, I'm scared," little Amy whispered against his chest. "I know, sweetheart," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "But we have to be brave, just a little longer." Behind them, the sounds of dying filled the air. Humans screaming. Buildings crashing. The alien weapons made a terrible whining sound as they turned everything Ryan had ever loved into ash and dust. Ryan reached the spaceport just as the last evacuation ship was preparing to leave. Captain Sarah Brooks was at the loading door, helping the final group of survivors climb aboard. "How many?" Ryan asked as he handed Amy to one of the other survivors. Sarah's face was grim. 2,000 on this ship. Maybe 3,000 more. On the other vessels. That is all we could save. Ryan looked back at his burning city. 10 billion humans had lived on Earth when the aliens attacked. Now, only a few thousand would escape. It was not war. It was murder. Where will we go? Someone asked. Ryan looked up at the stars. Somewhere they cannot find us. Somewhere we can grow strong. His voice became hard as iron. And someday we will come back. In the present time, Colonel Sarah Brooks stood in the command center of the human ship Justice. She was the same Sarah who had helped save those few survivors 3,000 years ago, though she looked much younger now. Human science had learned to stop aging and repair damaged bodies. Around her, screens showed alien leaders being brought aboard human ships. They came not as prisoners of war, but as suspects in a crime. The greatest crime in galactic history. The memory scanners are ready, Dr. Marcus Lee reported. He had set up machines that could read thoughts and memories directly from alien minds. There was no way to lie to these devices. No way to hide the truth. The first prisoner was brought in. General Vextor, the same Galaxian who had been captured in the first encounter. His forearms were bound, but his eyes still showed defiance. "I am a warrior," he growled. "I demand to be treated according to the laws of war." Sarah looked at him with cold eyes. "There are no laws of war here, General. This is a court of justice, and you are charged with genocide." The memory scanner activated. Lights played around Vextor's head, and suddenly the screens around the room filled with images from his mind. Sarah watched as the memories played out like a movie. She saw Vextor as a young soldier, 3,000 years ago. She saw him laughing as his unit destroyed a human school. She saw him giving orders to kill human children who tried to surrender. She saw him burning human hospitals and libraries and churches. "I was following orders," Vextor said weakly. "Whose orders?" Sarah asked. More memories appeared on the screens. Sarah saw the secret meetings between alien leaders. She saw them planning the complete destruction of humanity. She heard them argue about whether to keep some humans as slaves or kill them all. In the end, they had chosen to kill them all. We were afraid, Vextor admitted. Afraid of what humans might become if we let them live. Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were right to be afraid. General Tom Williams was setting up what the humans called judgment zones around former human worlds. These were areas of space where human technology created invisible walls that nothing could pass through. Alien fleets that entered these zones found themselves trapped like insects in a web. Tom was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes, but he had seen too much death to be gentle anymore. His job was to make sure that every alien who had taken part in the genocide faced justice. Sir, his aide reported, we have captured the entire 3rd Valaxian fleet. They were trying to reach their home world to warn their people. How many? Ships? Tom asked. 200 vessels. 50,000 crew members. Tom nodded. Process them all. Every memory scanned. Every crime recorded. No one who participated in the murder of our people will escape judgment. The aide looked uncomfortable. Sir, that will take months, maybe years. We have time, Tom said simply. We waited 3,000 years. We can wait a little longer, too. Make sure justice is done properly. Dr. Marcus Lee was working in his laboratory, preparing the most important broadcast in galactic history. He had spent years collecting evidence of the genocide. Now he was ready to show the galaxy the truth. Marcus was a quiet man who preferred books to weapons, but his work was more dangerous than any bomb. He had proof of everything the aliens had done, every murder, every burned world, every lie they had told to cover up their crimes. Are you ready? Asked his assistant, a young woman named Katie Wilson. Marcus looked at the massive data files on his computer. 3,000 years of hidden history. Documents the aliens thought were destroyed. Forever. Video recordings of their leaders planning the genocide. Confessions from soldiers who bragged about killing human children. Send it to every communication system in the galaxy, Marcus said. Every planet, every ship, every personal communicator. Make sure everyone sees the truth. Katie's fingers moved across the control panel. Across the galaxy, every screen suddenly showed the same image. A human man with sad eyes, standing in front of a wall covered with pictures of dead children. My name is Dr. Marcus Lee, the image said. I am human. My people were not destroyed in war 3,000 years ago. They were murdered. And today, you will see the proof. What followed was the most damning presentation of evidence in galactic history. Marcus showed videos of alien leaders laughing as they planned the destruction of human worlds. He played recordings of their meetings where they discussed the best ways to kill human families. He showed pictures of mass graves where millions of humans had been buried. On 1,000 worlds, alien children watched in horror as they learned what their grandparents had really done. Many began to cry. Some became sick. All of them, finally, understood why the humans had returned. In the deepest part of the human flagship, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working on the most incredible project in human history. Around her, machines hummed with power that could reshape matter itself. How many can we bring back? She asked her team. All of them, replied Dr. James Carter, a man whose own family had died in the genocide. Every human who died in the attacks. We have their genetic patterns, their brain scans, their complete life histories. We can recreate them exactly as they were. Elena nodded. The humans had learned to do something the aliens thought was impossible. They could bring the dead back to life, not as ghosts or memories, but as real, living people. Start with the children, she said. They deserve to see their families again. The machines began to work. In tanks of glowing liquid, bodies began to form. Children who had been dead for 3,000 years opened their eyes and took their first breaths in a new world. They would be witnesses at the trial of their killers. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vortzek sat alone in his office, reading the reports from his spy network. What he read made his crystal body shake with fear. Humans were not just seeking revenge. They were recreating everyone who had died. Billions of witnesses to testify against their killers. An entire species returning from the dead to demand justice. Vortzek had helped plan the genocide 3,000 years ago. He had voted to kill every human man, woman, and child in the galaxy. He had thought it was necessary to protect alien civilization. Now, he realized he had only delayed the reckoning. A message appeared on his communication screen. It was from Jake Morrison, the human captain who led the Black Fleet. Chancellor Vortzek, the human said, "In 72 hours, a human tribunal will arrive at Nexus Prime. You and your fellow leaders will stand trial for genocide. You may surrender peacefully, or we will come and take you. The choice is yours, but the outcome is not." Vortzek looked at his reflection in the dark screen. He was about to face the judgment of the dead, and there was nowhere left to run. The sky above Nexus Prime turned black with human ships. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking down at the alien capital world. Billions of aliens lived on that planet. They had built their civilization on the bones of his people, and for 3,000 years they had lived in peace and prosperity. That was about to end. "All ships report ready, Captain," Lisa Hayes said. She stood beside him, watching the alien defense fleets scramble to protect their home world. The aliens have assembled over 5,000 warships around the planet. Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Show them what we learned in the dark." Lisa pressed a button. All across the galaxy, every piece of alien technology stopped working at the exact same moment. On Nexus Prime, the lights went out. The air recyclers stopped running. The communication systems went silent. Every computer, every vehicle, every weapon simply stopped working. In space around the planet, 5,000 alien warships became floating metal coffins. Their engines died. Their weapons became useless. Their life support systems failed. The proud alien fleet was helpless as newborn babies. General Korath Prime was aboard his flagship when the darkness came. He was the greatest warrior in Valaxian history, with strength enough to tear apart metal with his bare hands. But now he sat in the dark, listening to his crew panic around him. "What is happening?" He roared into his dead communicator. But no answer came. Then a voice spoke inside his head, not through any machine, but directly into his thoughts. It was calm and terrifying. "General Korath Prime, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Space Command. Your fleet is now under our control. You have 3 choices. Surrender peacefully and face trial for your crimes. Accept collective punishment for your people, or choose trial by combat. You have 1 hour to decide." Korath Prime tried to fight back, but there was nothing to fight. The humans had not attacked his ships. They had simply turned them off. Down on the planet's surface, panic filled the streets. Aliens ran through the dark cities, trying to understand what had happened to their world. Some cried. Some prayed to their gods. Some simply sat down and waited for whatever was coming. In the government buildings, alien leaders gathered in emergency session. They met by candlelight because even their emergency power systems had failed. "How is this possible?" Queen HFY demanded. Her insect eyes looked around the dark room in terror. "No weapon can shut down technology across an entire galaxy." Chancellor Vortzek had spent the last 3 days reading every file about human capabilities. What he had learned kept him awake at night. "They are not using weapons," he said quietly. "They are using something else. Something we do not understand. What do you mean? Korath Prime's voice came through an old radio that somehow still worked. The humans have learned to control the basic forces of nature, Mortzek explained. They can make gravity stronger or weaker. They can change how electricity flows. They can alter the laws of physics themselves. The room became very quiet. These alien leaders had conquered the galaxy because they thought they understood science and technology better than anyone else. Now they realized they were like children playing with toys. Admiral Kate Sullivan was leading the human task force. That surrounded the alien capital. Her ship, the Redemption, was even bigger than Jake's vessel. It hung in space like a dark moon. Its weapons pointed at the helpless alien world below. Kate was a stern woman with silver hair and eyes like ice. She had been born during the long exile between galaxies, but she had grown up hearing stories of Earth and the murdered colonies. Those stories had shaped her into a perfect instrument of justice. "Begin the demonstration," she ordered. Below, on Nexus Prime's largest moon, something impossible happened. The entire moon began to change shape. The rocky surface flowed like liquid, reshaping itself into a perfect sphere. Then the sphere began to glow with soft blue light. The aliens on the planet below watched in amazement and terror. The humans had turned a dead moon into a work of art. If they could do that to a moon, what could they do to a planet full of living beings? A message appeared in the sky above every alien city. The words were written in light, floating in the air for everyone to see. People of the Galactic Confederation, you have lived a lie for 3,000 years. Your leaders told you that humanity was destroyed in an honorable war. The truth is that your ancestors committed genocide. They murdered billions of innocent humans, including children and babies. Today, justice comes to your galaxy. Those who are responsible will face trial. Those who are not will be spared, but you will all live under human protection from now on. The age of alien rule is over. Dr. Rachel Green was working in the Human Command Center, coordinating the global shutdown of alien technology. She was a small woman with red hair and freckles, but her mind was one of the most powerful in the human fleet. Around her, screens showed every alien world in the galaxy. On each world, the same thing was happening. Technology failing. Governments collapsing. Alien leaders realizing that their power was gone forever. How long can we maintain the shutdown? Asked her assistant, Dr. Paul Martin. Rachel looked at the power readings from the human ships. As long as we need to. Our ships draw energy directly from space itself. We could keep this up for centuries if necessary. Paul nodded. The humans had learned to tap into the fundamental forces of the universe during their long exile. They had energy sources that would never run out and weapons that could not be stopped. The Zephyrians are requesting a meeting, he reported. Their leader wants to discuss surrender terms. Rachel was not surprised. The Zephyrians were the most intelligent of the alien races. They understood the situation better than the others. Tell them we will meet with Chancellor Vorthsek in 1 hour, she said. But make it clear that this is not a negotiation. This is the acceptance of justice. Chancellor Vorthsek came aboard the human flagship alone. He had left his guards and advisors behind because he knew they could not protect him anymore. Nothing could protect him from what was coming. Jake Morrison met him in a simple room with no decorations. The human captain looked younger than Vorthsek. Expected, but his eyes held the weight of 3,000 years of pain. Chancellor, Jake said politely, thank you for coming. Vorthsek's crystal body was shaking. What do you want from us? Justice, Jake replied simply. For 3,000 years, your people have told lies about what happened to humanity. You have built your civilization on mass murder and called it progress. That ends today. What will happen to my people? Vortzek asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. That depends on you. The Zephyrians were not the worst of the genocide participants. Your people can accept judgment and continue to exist under human oversight. But the killing and the lies stop forever. Vortzek nodded slowly. He understood. The humans were offering his people a chance to live, but only if they accepted the truth about their past. And the others? He asked. The Korthik will be reduced to a pre-space civilization, Jake said. They will remain on their home world until they learn to value life. The Vala Xians ... He paused. The Valaxians have chosen trial by combat. Vortzek was not surprised. The Valaxians were too proud to surrender and too violent to accept peaceful judgment. Who will they fight? He asked. Jake's smile was cold as winter. Anyone they choose. But they will fight our champions using only their natural abilities. No weapons, no armor, no technology. Just strength against strength. Vortzek understood what this meant. The humans had evolved during their exile. They were no longer the weak race that had fled 3,000 years ago. The Valaxians would be fighting creatures that were far beyond normal human limits. There is something else, Jake continued. We have brought back the dead. Vortzek's crystal skin turned pale. What do you mean? Every human who died in the genocide has been restored to life. They will testify at your trial. Billions of witnesses to your crimes. Vortzek closed his eyes. He had nightmares about the humans he had helped kill. Now they were alive again, and they would all be looking at him with accusing eyes. When does the trial begin? He asked. Tomorrow, Jake said. On Earth, the world you helped destroy has been restored. That is where justice will be served. Vortzek looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the human, home world that had been burned to ash 3,000 years ago. The humans had brought it back to life, just as they had brought back their people. He was going to face judgment in the very place where his crimes had begun. There was a strange peace in knowing that his long guilt was finally coming to an end. Earth was beautiful again. Jake Morrison stood in the gardens of New Geneva, looking at the blue sky and green trees that had been restored after 3,000 years. The planet that had once been a ball of ash and dust was now more magnificent than it had ever been. Behind him, the great hall of justice rose into the sky like a mountain made of crystal and light. Inside that hall, the trial of the century was about to begin. The leaders of 3 alien races would face judgment for the John. Worst crime in galactic history. The witnesses are ready, Lisa Hayes reported. She stood beside him, wearing the formal blue uniform of the Human Space Command. All 9 billion of them. Jake nodded. The humans had done something the aliens thought was impossible. They had brought back every person who had died in the genocide. Men, women, children, babies. All of them alive again, all of them ready to tell their stories. And the defendants? Jake asked. Chancellor Vortzek has agreed to accept judgment. Queen HFY of the Korthik is demanding a legal defense. General KOR Wrath-Prime ... Lisa paused. General Korath Prime still wants trial by combat. Jake was not surprised. The Valaxians were warriors above all else. Even facing certain death, they would choose to fight. Who has he chosen as his champion? Jake asked. Wrathkiller, the greatest warrior in Valaxian history. He has never lost a battle and has killed over 1,000 enemies in single combat. Jake smiled. And our champion? Lieutenant Alex Turner volunteers for the honor. Jake knew Alex well. He was a young man, barely 25 years old, with brown hair and quiet eyes. He looked like he could not hurt a fly. But Alex was one of the new humans, born during the exile. He had abilities that would have seemed like magic to the humans of 3,000 years ago. "Tell Alex he has my blessing," Jake said. "But remind him that this is not about revenge. This is about justice." The trial began at dawn in the Great Hall of Justice. Representatives from every world in the galaxy watched as the truth was finally revealed. The hall was so large that it could hold 1,000,000 people, and every seat was filled. Chancellor Vorth-Zek sat in the defendant's chair, his crystal body reflecting the lights above. He looked old and tired, like a man who had carried a terrible secret for too long. Judge Patricia Adams called the court to order. She was an elderly human woman with white hair and kind eyes, but her voice carried the authority of absolute justice. "Chancellor Vorth-Zek," she said, "you stand accused of genocide, conspiracy to commit murder, and crimes against humanity." "How do you plead?" Vorth-Zek stood slowly. Around him, 9 billion humans watched and waited. These were the people he had helped kill, now alive again to see justice done. "I plead guilty to all charges," he said clearly. "I helped plan the destruction of humanity. I voted to kill every human man, woman, and child in the galaxy. I have carried this guilt for 3,000 years, and I am ready to face the consequences." A murmur went through the crowd. Many had expected him to deny his crimes or try to blame others. "Why?" Judge Adams asked. "Why did you choose genocide?" Vorth-Zek looked around the hall at all the human faces. "Because we were afraid. Humanity was growing too fast, learning too quickly. We believed that if we let you live, you would eventually surpass us and take over the galaxy. So you decided to murder us all instead," Judge Adams said. "Yes," Vorth-Zek whispered, "and I have regretted it every day since." The testimony that followed was the most heartbreaking in galactic history. One by one, the restored humans told their stories. Children described watching their parents die. Parents spoke of losing their babies. Entire families recounted their final moments together, but there was no hatred in their voices. Only sadness and a desire for truth. Dr. Elena Rodriguez testified about the science behind the restoration. "We preserved the genetic and mental patterns of every human who died," she explained. "These are not copies or clones. These are the exact same people who were murdered 3,000 years ago, brought back to life with all their memories intact." When the testimony ended, Judge Adams looked at Vorth-Zek with grave eyes. "The evidence is clear, and your guilt is admitted," she said. "However, the court recognizes that you have shown genuine remorse and have cooperated fully with this proceeding. The sentence is life in prison, with the possibility of rehabilitation after 100 years of service to human communities." Vorth-Zek bowed his head. "I accept this sentence. I only ask that my people be allowed to make amends for what we have done. The Jefferian people will remain free," Judge Adams declared, "but under human supervision. You will help us rebuild what was destroyed and learn to live in peace with all species." Queen HFY of the Korthik was next. Unlike Vorth-Zek, she showed no remorse. "I was following the orders of my hive queen," she said defiantly. "Individual Korthik do not make decisions. We only obey." Dr. Marcus Lee presented evidence of Korthik war crimes. The Korthik were responsible for the destruction of the human agricultural worlds, he testified. They used biological weapons to poison entire planets, making them uninhabitable for generations. The evidence was overwhelming. Videos showed Korthik soldiers laughing as they released deadly viruses into human water supplies. Documents revealed their plans to use human worlds as breeding grounds for their own young. "The Korthik will be returned to their home world," Judge Adams announced. "All their technology will be removed. They will remain there until they evolve beyond their hive mind mentality and learn to value individual life. Queen HFY screamed in protest, but the sentence was final. The trial by combat was held in the ancient Colosseum that the humans had rebuilt in Rome. General Korath Prime stood in the center of the arena, his 4 massive arms flexed and ready for battle. He was 8 feet tall and covered in thick gray skin that could stop bullets. Across from him stood Lieutenant Alex Turner. He looked tiny compared to the alien warrior. Alex wore simple training clothes and had no weapons or armor. "This is not fair," Korath Prime growled. "Where are your champion's weapons? Where is his armor?" Alex smiled calmly. "I do not need them." The battle began. Korath Prime charged across the arena with the speed of a racing car. His 4 arms swung toward Alex with enough force to crush steel. But Alex was no longer their dot. The young human moved like liquid lightning. He flowed around. The alien's attacks never quite where Korath Prime expected him to be. His movements were so smooth, they looked like a dance. Korath Prime tried to grab Alex with all 4 arms at once. Alex simply walked up the alien's body like he was climbing stairs, stepping from arm to shoulder to head before jumping away. "Fight me properly," Korath Prime roared. "I am fighting," Alex replied calmly, "but I will not kill you. That would make me like you." What followed was not really a fight. It was a demonstration of what humanity had become during their exile. Alex moved faster than the eye could follow. He jumped higher than seemed possible. When Korath Prime swung at him, Alex caught the alien's massive fist in his small hand and stopped it completely. The crowd watched in amazement as a young human, using only his natural abilities, completely outmatched the greatest warrior in Valaxian history. Finally, Alex moved so fast that he seemed to disappear. When he reappeared, he was standing behind Korath Prime. The alien warrior was frozen in place, unable to move. "How?" Korath Prime gasped. "I have touched the nerve centers in your spine," Alex explained. "You are paralyzed, but unharmed. You will recover in a few hours." Alex walked to the center of the arena and spoke to the crowd. "This is what we learned in the dark between stars," he said. "Not just how to fight, but how to win without becoming monsters. We could have destroyed every alien world in the galaxy. Instead, we chose justice." The crowd erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens alike applauded the demonstration of mercy and strength. Admiral Lorison stood to address the galaxy. "The age of genocide is over," he announced. "Humanity will now serve as guardians of galactic peace. We will protect all species from those who would harm them. We will ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." The new galactic government was established on Earth. The human hegemony was not a dictatorship, but a protective alliance. Alien worlds kept their independence as long as they followed basic laws against murder and oppression. The Valaxians were given a choice. They could accept exile to a quarantine system where they could fight each other to their hearts' content, or they could learn to live peacefully under human guidance. Most chose exile, but some younger Valaxians decided to stay and learn new ways. Dr. Jennifer Scott stood in her office overlooking the restored city of Washington. She was the new director of galactic relations, responsible for helping alien species adapt to the new order. Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Brown, brought her the daily reports. "The integration is going well," he said. "Most alien worlds are accepting human oversight without resistance." Jennifer nodded. "They understand that we are not conquerors. We are protectors." Through her window, she could see alien children playing with human children in the parks below. Zephyrian crystals sparkled in the sunlight next to human laughter. Even some young Korthik were learning to think for themselves instead of just following orders. "There is one more thing," Kevin said. "The restoration project is complete. Every human who died in the genocide has been brought back to life. Jennifer smiled. Then that you?